All right, so right now I'm gonna start to talk about some of the New Jersey, and some of these will be relevant to our family in Florida. But this is from Jeff Otto, who is Mr. New Jersey real estate economist here, giving us some bullet points on what's happening in the market. Number one is the impact of the geopolitical Ukraine invasion and the resulting shortages and inflation will likely prolong the Fed's interest rate hikes. So it might push them further down the road. It might even lessen them for a little bit. This is Jeff Otto speaking, not Rob Lazar. COVID-19 variants, less of an issue, less restrictions. Feels it will pick up again like the flu. Okay. That's our real estate economist. I'm a little bit concerned about what I'm seeing in China with the new COVID Omicron variant 2 or 3. And that's apparently having a big issue in China. Economic recovery is back to pre-COVID range. We've recovered all the jobs that we've lost from the pandemic, and we're now 700,000 jobs richer in New Jersey in the past 18 months. Mortgage delinquencies are way down at a 2.6%. Higher interest rates as of Robert, when was the auto seminar? 2 weeks ago? Oh, about a week ago. So higher interest rates are impacting buying power by about 10%. Sellers market will continue throughout the end of this year. Home sales are down noticeably from last year at the same time. Sales are down for the last 9 months. All price ranges are down, and that's not because of demand, that's because of inventory. Morris County sales are off 22%, inventory is down 31%. Be sure to account for price increases when pulling up comps. If a property went under contract 6 months ago, it should be adjusted upwards by 0.75% to 1% per month as an adjustment. So think about if something closed 3 or 4 months ago, it likely went under contract 1 to 2 months before that. So there's probably a 4 to 6% adjustment in the pricing there. Double-digit price increases will eventually lead to price decreases in 2 to 3 years. Now, our friends there in Florida, you guys might be insulated from this. I'll talk about that in a little bit. Consumer confidence is way off. Migration from New York City has slowed, and dramatic source of uptick in home sales since start of COVID. So, and I think that trend might actually even be reversing a bit. Prices this year will rise, according to Jeff Otto, 6%, 2023, 2%, and 2024, we'll see a decrease of approximately 6%, according to Jeff Otto in New Jersey. And sales in 2022 will be approximately 111,000, 2023, 95,000, and 2024, 89,000. So that looks like probably a 12 to 15% reduction in sales in the state of New Jersey. So what's been good about it is our reduced sales in the past year have been offset by higher prices. So our reduced sales volume has been offset by higher prices. So that's, let me just see, is the audio coming from the TV, folks, or no?
Lack of inventory also.
I'm just trying to get a technical issue here for the live presentation resolved. All right, so what I might have to do, team, is I might have to repeat your comments so that people live can hear what you're saying. So I can, but then it's going to be really bad? Yeah, but you're gonna get echo. If I take them, yes, can you? Maria, is the sound a lot worse now, or is it okay?
Worse.
It's worse. Worse.
It's worse.
I'm gonna go back to being on the headset.
It's very echoey.
So, Maria, do you want the good news or the bad news first?
Give me the bad news first, because the good news after it kind of settles it down.
All right, that's how you you prefer to take your coffee. Bad first,
Yep.
good later.
Yep.
So we talked a little bit about the bad news of the home buying power is dropping, right? And I think the home buying power or the affordability component is dropping much quicker than our buyers' ability to pay. So in other words, 10% less buying power, right? Prices going up. That's a bad equation, right? It makes it more challenging for buyers, even if they want to be competitive on their offers. I am not sure where interest rates land, but what I did do, and I'll share this on the screen a little bit later, but this chart here shows that on a long-term period in the past 10 years, it looks like interest rates are approaching the 10-year high.
Mhm.
So I think that we're going to find that there's a reasonable maximum at which point the interest rates will normalize. And it looks like that number is sub 5, and we're quickly approaching that number. So if you're going for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, according to Freddie Mac, as of last week, it's 4.67%. I think New Jersey is a little bit more competitive than a lot of the country because our average loan size is higher, and there's a little bit of an economy there. But it's a dramatic increase, probably like we've not seen. I don't see it anywhere on this chart, but it looks like at the middle of 13, we saw something close to this. So that's on the bad news column. The other bad news column is closed sales on all properties in New Jersey and in our market area, which would be like the Northern Jersey NJMLS area. We're seeing down 30 to 40% change in home sales for all properties and units. Now we're seeing prices up about 10%. So that's a net decrease of about 30% in our paycheck or in the available commissions out to everybody. Bad news, right? Good news. This I don't think.
Salaries are up.
No, well, salaries up is good news, but this chart here, and I'm going to share all these documents with you. I'm going to even do my screen share later. This shows us total existing home sales at an annual rate. And it shows that existing home sales in terms of a macro level are trending in that 6 to 6.2 million annual rate. And I don't think that the economy is going to be able to support much lower than, 5.8, 5.9 million transactions. Okay. And the speculative component, Zillow, who we all know and trust, right? Everybody trusts Zillow. I think Zillow predicted 6.9 million sales, and I think we're at 6.15 million for 2021, which means they were off by a long shot. And the defect in their methodology was Zillow had estimated that higher prices would force a lot more people to put their homes on the market, and that component of supply never materialized. Okay, I'm surprised that not more people are coming to us and saying, wow, prices are high. It might now be the time for me to downsize or to cash out of my piggy bank here.
I don't have anywhere to go.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I mean, you would think that people would be like, let me realize this profit, right? Instead of having it sit, locked within their home.
Rob, I think people just, they're afraid to move because, first of all, they want to, if they sell their house, they said, most people that I talk to say, well, if I buy something else, it's going to cost me a lot more money to buy another house because the prices are going up. So why should I do that? Just stay here and live here in the house, in my existing home. That's what I'm getting.
Hold on one second. Are we hearing it here or no? Okay, so I'm gonna paraphrase. If we don't get the technology fixed, I'll just summarize. The question is the same in Florida as is here. If I sell it now at the higher price, where am I going to go? I'm going to have to pay more where I buy. And Ron, here's another negative into that story. Is a lot of people have done this once or multiple times in the past 3 to 5 years, refinanced, right? So who in this room has a mortgage? Who has a mortgage that's below 4%? Who has a mortgage below 3%? So almost everybody has a mortgage below 3%. Now, if we go to buy, is our mortgage portable, Eric? Can you take that 3% mortgage and move it to another property?
No.
So we have that extra risk or that extra exposure of if we want to trade, like we want to trade up 10%, right? Because of the change in interest rates, it's going to cost us 20% more, right? So what do you think that's going to do to those people who are in homes and thinking of selling? It's going to slow up that process even more because if I sell, where am I going to go? And then I'm going to have to pay higher interest rates, correct? So that's
Well,
that's the
Rob,
bad news.
but here's probably the good news part of it, because I always see the flip side. So I have a house. Yes, I have a mortgage that's, less than 4, a little bit over 3. But when I go to sell this house at the market value today as to what I know I'm going to get, it's going to give me I have a tremendous amount of equity here. So when I go to put down that huge down payment on the next house because of my equity, I think I'm going to be okay.
So but it's going to be a net impact, Maria. That's I think economists are looking at. So like if you had, if you're trading up, Maria, it's actually, that equity is going to be a smaller piece of your trade up. If you're trading down, it's going to mute that impact a little bit. But we've seen amazingly few people tempted by the higher prices to say, hey, now's an opportunity for me to sell and move up or down. I mean, would you all agree on that? It's like the sellers are not coming out of the woodwork like Zillow predicted. They predicted an extra 15% sales because the prices would influence people to sell. That, quite frankly, did not happen. Here's the good news. The good news is over time, there's a certain component of real estate sales that happen automatically. Okay, and maybe if we haven't seen that big increase in units, okay, we're not going to see a big drop because we didn't have that bump. And if we look at this chart here, which I think is really, really interesting, I'm going to share my screen. Let me find my chart. Okay. This goes through, this is housing units built, right? So how many people need a house? And let's compare that to how housing units formed to how many housing units are built. So there is a tremendous deficit in new housing formation compared to housing starts or houses put into the market. And I have no idea how I drew on my chart, but this is a chart for those of us who are doomsday people and naysayers of, is 2008 coming again, right? 2007. Let's take a look at in 2002 through 2006 or 5, because these are housing starts or housing completions. The line, this line here, folks, is if we stayed at the, we matched housing starts or housing completions with family formations, right? And it shows in 2002 through 2005 or 6 that we're way overbuilding. And now look at the period from 2006 on. There's a tremendous deficit of housing completion compared to family formation. Can you see that? Like it's very, 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 very strong. And we're seeing that in, who has a listing that was on the past 2 weeks? Let's see in the room. Heather, tell me about how many offers. Hopefully you got a lot of offers on it, did you? So you put it up this past Wednesday, and have you gotten a lot of offers yet? Anybody have one where you've gotten your final offer accepted, and that you put it on the past 2 weeks or 30 days? How about on the call? Anybody have something that you put on in March that you want to share? How many offers have you gotten? Robert?
No, I have.
I had something go up last week. I had 6 offers in 1 week.
I had an offer accepted. It was on the market for 3 days. We were one of 3 offers.
So the first. So Robert, what was the approximate price range of the house? So we had $1.7 million, went for 16% above ask price. And how long did it take to go under contract? 3 days. And how many offers did you have? You had 8 offers at $1.7 million range. And I'm guessing that's almost 300, 100, 250 or so more than ask price? Like a 250 premium? Wow. And did you price it auction style, or did you try to price it market? Okay. And how many percentage points below your market rate did you go? And you listed for $1.7 million. So that's like what, 4%, something like that, 5%. Wow. So I heard a couple other comments on the online. Was that Greg saying something?
Yeah, I just had an offer accepted just last week, and it was on the market for 3 days. We were one of 3 offers, and we came in. It was pretty wild. I think it was like about 449, and we came in at 500 contingent, and it appraised for 505. So it appraised way higher than everyone was expecting. But yeah, we got accepted, closed in 2 weeks.
So you were on the buy side at 449, a 449 property, paid 500, appraised for 505.
Hey, Rob.
Yes, sir.
Hey, so there's in the chat, Christine said she had 14 offers on a listing. She had in Rockaway listed 379 offers, went from 385 to 436.
Let me see. Are you guys able to hear the chat? Okay, good.
And Rob, Mark Feingold listed 399, 3 days, 41 offers, 75,000 above.
It's almost 20% above.
Yep.
Okay, let's go into some more of these numbers here. And then I have to be honest, I see a lot of conflicting data here, and we're going to draw some conclusions towards the end of the session here. One of the things I did discover was some really good resources to find information. I'm just going to go through this really, really quickly, and I'm going to share this screen when we upload the video. So this is, I believe, was done in January, and I think they did one in March too. Home value growth will fall just short of record breaking, 11% increase in 2021. So sales of existing homes are projected to reach 6.35 in 2022. In 2021, they predicted 6.1 was the number from NAR, and Zillow had predicted, I think, 6.8 or 6.9. Hold on, we're experimenting with technology here. So you Sunbelt remains the explosive growth. Okay, 24 of the 25 top markets were in the Sunbelt. Economists can see this to continue, and Gen Zers and millennials will be buying a second home before primary residence. So instead of selling and buying in their area, they're seeing a lot of trends of people, vacation, work home. I think Airbnb and renting is another component of that. And I know a couple of weeks back, Bruce Oliver talked about how some of the agencies made some changes in how they're lending and making it a little bit more difficult the vacation homes. Are we satisfied with the sound? So you can't hear it on there? Okay, Maria, can you talk? We want to check the sound. Maria?
Sounds okay.
Ron, can you hear? Ron, can you hear?
Sorry,
Ron, pick it up.
no, we don't hear you well.
Can't hear you.
Rob, mute everybody. There's a lot of background.
Rob, you need to mute everybody.
All right, let me mute. Hold on, let me mute everybody. So do we have any lenders on? We had a great question about are we seeing adjustable rates now coming into play for what may be a shorter intermediate rise in interest rates? A 3, 5, 7 year? So, Emily suggesting one of her clients took a 7-year ARM instead of a fixed rate to offset the, the damage, believing that it's not going to be a long-term inflationary period. Okay, so Deborah said, lender said a lot of buyers are asking about 5-year ARMs. So if we have any lenders on, if you want to chime in, otherwise I'm going to keep moving forward here.
Rob, I think Bruce Oliver last week said that he doesn't feel that the interest rates are going to be high for very long. It's a short-term issue that we'll have.
Okay, so I think oil prices have moderated a bit. I know I saw them under 105. Does anybody know where oil is now? Follow that? No. And an interesting phenomenon. Okay, and this is not. I'm not a stockbroker or a futures trader, but I do know that when oil was hitting $140, $150 a barrel in the spot market, if you were buying it in the future, you're buying it out 12 to 18, 24 months, and was still trading closer to that $85 to $95 mark, which means that the people with the money, not the speculators on TV and not the politicians, are saying that in 2 years, oil prices are going to be on the wholesale level 30% less, 150 down to 95. So I think that's a positive. And I do believe the folks who look at interest rate futures, okay, they see the 3 and the 5 year future interest rates being not as high as they are on the spot rate today. Okay, so that means that
Rob, sorry,
ahead.
crude oil is right over 100. You're right on.
Right.
Today.
So you know, when crude oil hit that spike on the spot rate, which means I need to buy it today, which is like when you're borrowing money today, that's your interest rate today. But if there's a market for futures and they're trying to predict interest rates, I don't think it's as brutal as some of the commentators lead us to believe. And you couple that with this chart of historical interest rates, which I'm going to put on here from Freddie Mac. All right, here's our chart, 1 year, and here's a 10-year chart, and it looks like we're over that 10-year period when things started to approach 5%. There was strong resistance, and rates tended to come down. You see, it had these little peaks, and then it tails down, and that might be due to there's a natural rate at which housing is sustainable. It might be that when you hit to that point, it crowds out buyers and the market's forced to come back down. But this chart looks pretty interesting to me, and I think it's in a positive way. And let's see if we go all. So if we go back to, there was your 15% in the 80s, but historically it's been, you know, trending steadily down. So I think this is a positive for the housing market. I think that the politicians have an interest to see that interest rates don't spike to, you know, unsustainable levels. And here's a couple of resources from our peers. And it's taking a little bit longer for this data to pop up. So you can play around with these charts in terms of new listings coming on, year-over-year change. And I think we could even change the axis. So we see in 2021, our new listings in all the metros are way down.
And you're giving you're going to give us these slides so we can play with them ourselves?
Yep.
Cool.
So I'm just trying to find a New Jersey metro here if I can. Yeah.
New Brunswick?
Here, let's say Newark Metro. I know it's. So Eric, these are, I believe, are stats compiled by Redfin, which are probably MLS based, because I'm sure they're extracting the data from the MLS and the inventory that's available. But if we, so for sale by owners actually are a smaller percentage, Eric, of the market than they were. Smaller than it was. And I think what's happening in skewing that number is a lot of the owners are putting it on Zillow and saying, I'll pay a commission to a buyer's agent. And maybe it's a half a transaction, but it still has a real estate professional involved. It wouldn't show up on the inventory. You're right. So all of this data is going to be available for you to look at. So median sales prices. So let me go to New Jersey because this is a little bit less clear. I have our North Jersey Metro report, which shows that in February versus the prior February, the 1 year change in closed sales is down 16.5%. The average sale price is up 6.5%, which to me seems low. And 1 year change in homes for sale, which is our inventory, is down 38%, which feels real. So inventory is down 38%, sales only down 16%. I don't know how we do that, but I mean, that's, some pretty, challenging headwinds for us to go through. And if we look at the entire state, it's very similar to what we see here.
I have the entire state if you want.
Nope, here it is. So
Okay.
inventory is down 29.3, roughly 30%. Year over year sales down 16.3 and sale price up 9.7. So, this is what we're, facing as we go into our spring market. Listings have been the buzzword for the past 18 months and really for the entire course of the real estate business, but now it's even more critical than ever. And I keep looking back at two things as I look at where the market's going. And I don't know if Anna Montez is on the call, but I remember when the pandemic first hit, everybody wanted to get a bargain, and Anna was like, you know what? I got more buyers, less sellers. I don't think prices are going to drop. Very, very fundamental observation. I think housing formations are increasing. A couple other factors that are influencing and voting for a strong housing market is people are still living longer. Okay, so that's slowing ever so slightly the demand for, estate homes and estate sales. And the pandemic has had another consequence, which is divorce rates at, nearly an all-time high. And divorces take one home and create two homes that are needed. Okay, so divorce scenarios further put pressure on the housing supply. Does that make sense? So some of these things might even be good, conversations or good discussion points to talk with our clients about, because these are real things that not everybody's thinking about. you know, we've underbuilt for years. We've not been able to build appropriately because of in product shortages, right? I mean, if you tried to buy, who's bought an appliance like a refrigerator in the past year, or was it a challenge? Had to buy one off the floor.
Yes, it was very challenging and expensive.
So expensive, challenging, less inventory, like, you know, just something as simple as buying an appliance now is challenging. And I guess, you know, all of our appliances now have chips in it. And if there's a COVID shutdown in Taiwan or somewhere in China, it's delaying cars and appliances and everything else. So
Rob,
yeah.
Rob, I just got an 18-month lead time on a fence for my house, the one I want, because I want to match my neighbor's fence. 18-month lead time for the fence.
So, I mean, these are structural challenges that we have that are going to support higher prices. So if you have buyers that are on the sideline thinking, hey, maybe I should wait and, you know, buy when the market crashes, do any of these things lead us to believe that the market's going to crash?
Mm-mm.
Does
I don't
any?
think so.
I mean, I don't see the market crashing. I see that we have, I'm going to say, you know, 8 to 20, you know, buyers, qualified buyers for every realistically priced home on the market, which is tremendous unbalance. I mean, Eric, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, when you had a good listing, how many solid offers would you have before you sold it? If you had 2, and now we're talking about 8 to 20. So there is a tremendous amount of demand out there. And you know, Emily, your point about being creative and going to like a 7-1 or a 5-1 arm might make that 10% housing price, that housing affordability issue almost disappear. Do you recall what rate they got on a 7-year? 2 something, which is where a good 30-year was, right? So there's opportunities for people to do that. Another thing that we didn't mention that bodes against a housing crash is we talked about this a couple masterminds back, that the equity in homes, I think it's less than 2% of homes have negative equity. 35 to 40% of them are paid off in full. And last year alone, and this is on the NAR home buyer survey, last year alone, the average homeowner in the United States saw a $56,700 increase in equity.
More than that in New Jersey.
Probably more in New Jersey, but I don't know how many, you know, nationally. I'd say the average income is probably not 56.7 thousand across the country.
No.
So you basically got, you know, you doubled your income without having to work another job because of your home appreciation.
So Rob, if we circle back to what you were saying before with the new construction, okay? What I can actually speak on is down here in Monmouth and Ocean County, we have a lot of new construction, but they're adult communities. And one of the reasons is that the towns are very reluctant to the open market new developments because of the school systems. They would be overcrowded and they don't want to add to that burden. So you go anywhere down here, Toll Brothers, Lennar, they're building adult communities.
So Maria, I'm gonna read into that. So Maria mentioned that adult communities are being developed in Monmouth County because municipalities don't want to add to the school burden, because that will, you know, ultimately raise taxes, and that's not popular. So, you know, the building of the adult communities and the limitation on, you know, non-restricted communities is also going to keep pressure on prices for non-adult communities to be higher, because it's more and more and more difficult to get a permitted
Mhm.
55 plus community.
That's right.
Okay, so these are all things that are bullish for housing. And as we have buyers, right, that are thinking they might wait. Okay, and I think some of us feel that this is, by show of hands in the room, who feels like it's unsustainable what we've been through the past 12 to 18 months?
I do.
Nobody?
I do.
I mean, I think like the amount of buyers, like a lot of people are feeling like, hey, maybe this is going to be a peak, maybe, if you have some investment properties, you want to unload them now because it can't continue to go up forever. But I don't think we're going to see the crash like we saw in 2008 for, probably,
No.
in the foreseeable future, because the lending's been responsible. Houses are not used as piggy banks. Foreclosures are minimal. And why are foreclosures minimal?
More jobs, people working, higher salaries,
Equity's
No.
up.
Equity.
equity.
Yeah, and instead of foreclosing, you can call Eric and list your house and make a profit, even if you're 6 months in default. Right? Because you just went up 56,700 last 12 months alone. Right. So the market will bail out a lot of these defaults. So, that part of the segment of, distress sales is going to be kept down to a minimum, even though I do believe that foreclosure sales are now happening, but it's very minimal, very, very minimal.
Can I ask a question? Because I never talk on these things.
Sure.
Yeah, there's too many of you. I get nervous. Anyway, I'm getting a seller that bought 2 years ago in Englewood now thinks he needs to list and sell because he's getting nervous. And now I have a couple of friends who want to sell and rent. So I'm finding that a lot of people want to sell now and rent and wait until things calm down. So what's going to happen? I don't see a lot of things to rent. That's my concern, is leasing.
So Erica, in where was the homes in Bergen County, Erica?
The house, my buyer from 2 years ago was in Englewood. And now he's seeing the value of his neighbors going up. So now he's nervous about what's going to happen. I don't know if he means his job or he means I don't know what he means. And I'm like, all right, I'm on my way, like I'll take it.
I'll sell it.
He's like, he wants to move already. And I'm like, you sure you're gonna be able to find a place to rent? Don't worry about me. I'll figure it out. I have people I know. I'm like, okay, because there's not a lot out there for leasing. I mean, and I have a friend who wants to sell in Rockland and move here.
And Eric, I don't know about up north, but there's bidding wars on rentals down here in Monmouth.
I know. Wait, that happened to me. That happened to me 9 months ago. I lost a bid, and that was before this was really hot. And this girl's like, don't worry, I'll find something. And I'm like, listen, I'm finding 9 rentals. She was only at 3,000, but there's 9 rentals right now in 4 towns in Bergen. Mawa and Ramsey are big towns to rent in because there's a lot of condos and townhouses. There was nothing. I mean, nothing.
And the prices of what's out there is disgustingly high.
Right. So, Rob, do you think people are going to start doing that, like selling now and then renting?
I don't see that as being a prevalent trend. Does anybody else see your
They want to sell high.
Your equity rich homeowner saying, hey, let me cash out now and sit on the sideline for a year or two?
No.
Does anybody see that?
I have a couple.
I mean,
Please have a seat.
I mean, Erica, I'm in the other camp, because like I'm thinking like if people sell now and they go on the sidelines, in all likelihood they're going to be facing higher prices down the road, and I don't want to talk. Let me mute everybody.
Mute everyone, Rob.
So there's still.
You got to unmute yourself, Erica. Erica, unmute yourself, please. So
I did.
Okay.
I'm always unmuted. No, I'm just kidding. No, so in other words, when my friend goes to look in May, is she going to still have a problem with finding a rental? Because she's like, all convinced. And I'm like, I don't know how the market's going to be in a few months. May's not far off.
I mean, is there anybody that's had a rental that has been, unrealistic to complete? Emily, you have?
I think the luxury the luxury rentals down here at least are taking a little more time to rent. But the rentals for like houses around 4,000, 5,000, 3,500 a month, they're renting pretty quick.
On what was the asking price?
What's that?
1 second. So you're seeing like 25% increase in rental and it's snapping up like that.
Rob, I think Mario had to jump off, but Mario has.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, there you are.
I'm here.
Mario, telling me what happened with yours, with your rental.
Yeah, I already 2,200 was a hike for the rental, but I had like 10 applicants and it drove the price up to 2,500.
Oh my God.
And I just listed mine a month ago, which is my own property. I wish I had that, but I didn't.
Yeah.
Funny.
So you know,
Which even at 22 is crazy. It's crazy for the area to even, but I listed mine at 22 and I had no problem renting it.
Hey, Rob.
Yep.
Why don't you suggest to the people who wants to sell? There are many investors are sitting on the sidewalk. You can stay in your home and propose the homes for investors.
that's an
They'll put the
excellent idea.
money. You can stay in your home.
You guys hear that?
Well, you know what? That's nice because some of the agents have been winning bidding wars by doing just that. The buyer is willing to even wait 6-8 months before moving in. So that is a good way to get the listing, to say, you know, Mr. Seller, we'll put subject to seller's relocation. Well, they'll give you time. And that's how some bidding wars have been won. And not so much the price point, but the seller could stay there for a while.
So, but I think that was Sarah Cohen, right?
Yes.
So I think, Sarah, you were talking more of a like a indefinite type of concept, right? Hey, sell your house now while the market's high. We'll have an investor that buys it, and then you can recognize the profit, and you don't even need to move. Is that your comment?
Yes, exactly. They would stay the home they love. They can continue staying in, and the investor will put the money for you, and it's done deal. I know that in some co-ops in River Edge, people are selling. They stay there, and one investor has already acquired 4 or 5 of them there, and it's fantastic profit for him. And the people who are living there all the time, they stay there, and they are very happy.
So that's it. I like that idea. So it's not, Maria, you talked about a term, right, of letting them stay in there as a term of the sale, but Sarah's is a structural component where, it reminds me, Sarah, of it's like a reverse mortgage or that commercial on TV. Hey, do you want to sell your life insurance so you can have the money while you're living, right? So here's a concept where you can keep your house, right? You can pay rent.
Stay in your property, the one you love, and you were there living forever, and there is an investor there who puts the money and gets the property.
So you're not taking a mortgage, you're not doing a reverse mortgage, you're staying in your house. You can negotiate a 1, 2, 10, whatever type of a lease term, and you get to cash out of it. I love the idea. I love the idea.
Just to promote the house, market the house for investors. You can't believe how many people they're going to jump. They always want to buy real estate today. It's very valuable, very desirable. And there are not too many properties that people can buy. So they buy and they have a tenant. It's a done deal. It's a fantastic deal.
Yep. No, Sarah, love the idea. Thanks for sharing that. And maybe we could try a post out there, say, hey, we have investors, you could sell your house and stay there, right?
You'll be surprised how many people will jump. I get calls every day from people who wants to buy for investment. There is nothing there to buy.
So Kelly King, I'm not sure I understand how the investor makes money. So the investor's in the game for appreciation, and if they're paying all cash, if you have your money in the bank, even now, you're maybe getting 1%. You buy a house, you can get a 5-6% cap rate. Okay, so you know the homeowner theoretically would pay 3% as a mortgage. Part of that money would be equity. So an investor can make money in that scenario. Now,
Absolutely, a lot.
I'm going to lean into our way south folks, our Florida family. Are we seeing institutional investors in Florida?
Yes.
You are. So you're seeing hedge funds and large capital groups buying houses?
Yes, and they are doing similar to what you just said. They tell the homeowner that they can lease back from them.
I mean, I saw on I think it was CNBC, they had a blurb for maybe like 2 minutes about the cash buyers where people are getting financing and they submit a cash offer. There's an intermediary that charges a 1% fee to give you the ability to close on cash and then finance later. Anybody familiar with that in the room or on the online? Nobody? I thought it was going on in Florida quite a bit. Ron, have you seen it?
Yeah, there's a lot of advertising on TV.
Because what they do is they come in, they, instead of giving you a pre-approval letter, they make you a cash buyer. And you wind up buying the house. The third party company takes the risk, and then they have you pre-approved on the back end so that you're completely a cash buyer. And the fee for that was 1%. Interesting, I think.
Yep, Rob, my client just did that on an off-market property in Upper Saddle River.
Okay, what's that, Deb?
Huh?
Yeah, there's a company down here called Knock that does that program.
I think Knox is truly an affiliate.
Hold on 1 second. Go ahead. So Deb's saying that if we encourage investors, is it going to make the problem worse? I don't think you can stop them, Deb. I think like what we need to do is we need to look at, if we have owners, right? We can't take a look at the macro level. We need to take a look at the individual level. So, if I have, Eric Funk has a client that wants to stay in their home, but they think that the market's, ridiculously inflated, which would be two very reasonable assumptions. Bringing an investor in there, if it made sense, would solve two problems, right? They get to cash out, and it's better than cashing out on like if you take a home equity loan or you refinance it, you still have the risk of where the market goes, right? If you're satisfied, if you're 75 years old, right, and you're satisfied taking a profit in this market, which I can't blame anybody if you did, right? I mean, if the market did correct, like, and you're 75, when are you going to catch up on that? So you lock in your gain. An investor comes in and says, I'm willing to hold the property, keep you in there, and if you're renting it to a 75-year-old, there's a good chance that they might, have to transition to assisted living or live with a relative or whatnot. It might not be as long as they anticipated, but there's value in giving the current home owner, who would be the seller, that ability to control the process.
Rob. Hey, Rob, this is Marcos.
1 second, Marcos. So Deb's saying, like, maybe that's something we educate buyers on. And it's a little bit more challenging for buyers because they become then an investor in that property. The rates change, the down payment structure changes, if I'm buying a house to live in, Deb, and then I'm assuming the risk of somebody else living in there, it's probably not for everybody, right? Being a landlord.
I think we froze.
So can you? $60 days. 60 days. So anyway, so Mark, is it Marcos? You had a question?
Yes, I have a question. So to me, selling to rent doesn't make sense because let's say, for example, I'm paying my mortgage 2,300, for example, right? And then if I'm gonna rent the same house, it's gonna be for 4,000, correct? So if I sell this house, then I'm gonna stay here two years till the market goes down. So I'm gonna spend all my profit in renting, you know?
So is that a separate question from the one we were talking about an owner selling it and renting back?
Yeah, no, it's the same the same.
So as part of the term, so let's say Eric is an investor and I live in a house and I only want to be there for 2 to 3 more years, and I think this is a great time to sell. Part of my negotiation could be, rather than me go and pay $4,000 a month in rent, market rent, to Eric as a buyer for the next 3 years, I'm paying the same as a mortgage. I'm only going to pay you $2,300. There's such an insatiable, unsatisfied demand for people buying properties. A homeowner might be able to get away with that. Might be able to say, look, I want to keep my payment the same for 3 years. I'll sell it to you at market value. If I was going to sell it, move out, I might have 40 offers on this property. Eric, you might have to pay me a lot more, but I'm satisfied with, selling my house for $550 and renting it back from you for 3 years for $2,300 a month, which is not a arm's length transaction, but I think it's something that you can negotiate, right? And an investor would say, "Hey, I'm deferring the economic value for 3 years, up to 3 years."
And if you have a tenant drop, you can always apply for a mortgage too. It's going to become an income property.
Yeah, I mean, like the investor side, I think there's lots of different dynamics there, Sarah. But I mean, I think Marcos, you're like tunnel vision on, hey, it would have to be market rate rent. But I mean, this whole market is so imbalanced that you might be able to do some crazy things.
Right.
So in conclusion, I'm going to stay on for an overtime here, but in conclusion, we have a underbuilt U.S. housing market, and we have an increasing population. We have an increasing number of household formations or households that are competing for that. We all see that. We see it painfully so in New Jersey, and I'm sure it's even worse in the Sun Belt, in our Florida markets. And we just need to be able to figure out, how do we navigate through this? Another good thing is real estate agents, the non-productive real estate agents, are self-identifying and leaving the market. So we have a little bit less competition from people who got, the COVID real estate license. And by the time they have to pay their second year worth of board dues, and they realize it's not as easy as they thought, they're exiting the marketplace. And I don't know what the numbers were exactly, but I want to say that, it was like 8% of the board membership in New Jersey opted not to renew their membership. They probably went into referral or abandoned their license. That tells me a lot. So that's some good news. And just keep thinking, there's more families, more household formations than there is houses out there. And until that fundamentally changes, we're going to have bidding wars on rentals. We're going to have price appreciation. Go ahead, Robert. Okay. Yeah. So before anybody drops off, I saw we just lost a couple. Next week we have Gary Large. Is he like an executive director at North Central, or he's a past president? past president of New Jersey Realtors, and Gary is kind of our go-to person when we have a conundrum question. What if? What do we do here? What do we do there? And a lot of times we lean into him for like a lot of these procuring cause matters, because that's one of these things where the small details can really make a difference on who gets paid. And for those of you who do not know, procuring cause is not like a court case where they might say, you deserve 70%, you deserve 30%. It's all or nothing. So procuring cause is all or nothing. And next Friday's Mastermind is going to be Gary Large answering all your questions that you have about real estate. It could be about ethics. It could be about cooperation. Could be about some things that are disturbing you in the marketplace. It could be about some ideas that you have that you can use to grow your business. It could be about some strategies. So I think it's a tremendous opportunity. This was Robert Garver's idea, and an open forum to ask and get answered all the questions that you could possibly have. So please try to make next Friday a commitment on your part, and think of all the questions that you normally ask your leadership team or your managers, myself, and let's direct them to Gary and see what kind of a response we get.
Awesome.
Rob,
As always,
Rob,
thank you.
Rob, can
welcome.
you just remind, there's in the chat, can you just remind everyone where they can get the recording? Aside from, I think you send it out, but if anyone wants to access the old recordings, can you just remind everyone where to get them?
Yeah, so it's on YouTube. It's on our YouTube channel. I think it's Abundance in Real Estate. You can go there and get it. And they're also, I'll send out a link. Now I'll put the link to our channel when I send out the Mastermind, so you don't have to go hunting and pecking for it.
Everyone like and subscribe to it.
Yes, please do that. Any other questions on the overtime here? I'll stick around for a few minutes. I'm sure you have some opinions, and we have a qualified platform of experts here to share those ideas. So anybody have any questions, comments?
Not today.
Did it? I must have done a really good job. I think these were your notes, Robert, that helped out. So anyway,
over 100 today.
Have a great weekend, everybody. And your job security is strong, and we're gonna have a number of banner years coming up, and we just need to make sure that we shift and we get that message across before our competition does. Have a great weekend.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.